I've mixed up a solution of black, and for the most part it's black. There's a little bit of brown in it to make it not quite so harsh, but it's highly diluted. It's very thinned out, and even with that I'm going to still work with the dry brush technique here, wiping off most of the dye or most of the paint, so that I can come in with a very small, what we call a liner brush, and deepen some of these lines or sharpen some of these lines, such as around the mouth here. I'll use this to deepen the shadow underneath his eye so that it looks like it's just got that eyebrow hanging over his eye there. This area, that little wedge of feathers that are right behind his eye, we'll deepen that a little bit. We'll also use this again to enhance this little roll of skin that's around the bottom edge of the eye. We're also going to use this inside of the eye as well to create roundness to that eyeball. And what we'll do is, again, with very little dye here, I'm going to start right in the corners, and I'm going to get right up against that roll of skin. And again, I just wiped more of the paint off of my brush so that there's even less on it than when I started. And what I want to do here is as the paint disappears off of my brush, I want to work toward the center so that it gets lighter and lighter and lighter. Use the old smudge finger there. But this helps to give roundness to the eye, gives depth to it. And when we put an eyeball in the center of it, it really gives him a look of intensity. One of the things about painting an eagle is that if you can get their eyes looking right, they have a look of fierceness and even angriness that really makes them look great, and a lot of that is just accomplished with getting the eye to look right. One of the things with, again, that's good about working with acrylics is that if I were to get the eye too dark here, or it was the color was too deep, or I got it somewhere as I didn't want it, could always come back and put the yellow back over the top of it and start over again. It gives you a second chance if you need it, and sometimes I need it. We'll also use this color inside the mouth too to create depth. Now here I'm using a little bit more on my brush. We also need to put a little dab of this inside of this nostril. Now it's time for us to put the pupil in his eye, and for this I'm going to use black, and I'm going to use it straight out of the bottle so that it doesn't run on me. I want it to stay where I put it. And we're going to start in the center here and kind of build the eye up. We don't want to put a round dot smack in the middle. It'll look just weird. So we need to start and make it on the forward part of his eyeball. And again, if you get it where you don't want it, or get it larger than you want it, you can always go back and redo this. This is one of the advantages of working with the acrylics. The pupil is for the most part oval. And we'll come back and put a little glint in there to make it sparkle. Using some red and a little bit of white, I've created a pink color here for the tongue, and I've also watered this down pretty good so that it doesn't get too intense or too bright. We'll just paint the tongue here. We can use some of that watered down black and a little bit of this to deepen the shadow here where the tongue tucks underneath there. And just to give it a little bit of 3D, we'll touch the top of it with some of that brighter white. The black paint on the pupil of the eye has dried, so now it's time to put a glint in his eye. And we will use straight white out of the bottle. Again, not diluted or anything. We don't want it to run. And this is the first pure white that we've used. When you're putting this glint in the eye, it's not a dot, it's a reflection. And so it's usually runs in a little bit of an angle, and you don't want it to be like smack in the middle of the pupil. You want it to be a little bit off center there, a little bit over the corner of the eye. We're also going to use some of this pure white to hit some of the highlights of the feathers. There's a few of these feathers that the sun's going to catch, the light is going to catch, just because of where they are, like these feathers that are directly over the eye. They're a little more prominent, so we'll use some pure white just to touch the ends of some of these. And up here around the outline of his head, some of these feathers, again, they're going to be just a little more prominent. They're going to be a little brighter. So we'll use a little bit of pure white